What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now taking us to San Antonio, Texas. We are purely in the group of five realm for the rest of prediction season, and the UTSA Roadrunners out of the newly branded American Conference are up next for 2025 predictions. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, plenty of ways you can do that, but the biggest way, go down below, hit that subscribe button, and hey, while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell, because turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season. You especially don't want to miss one of your favorite team. Now, I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry. Gonna start getting some regular radio hours very soon. So if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do, potentially hear me and doing what I do, or hear me doing what I love and doing what I do best, or if you just want to get some updates on what's going on this YouTube channel, then please give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or Instagram, and you can even email me at tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. Let us kick it off now with the UTSA Roadrunners and their head man in Jeff Traylor. It was honestly a very uncharacteristically poor season per UTSA standards, at least the way they have been over the past couple of seasons. They went 6-6 and 4-4 in conference. Now, there were a couple of reasons that the team got held back in that regard, and I'll explain those here in just one moment. There were some weaknesses here on this team from last season, but overall, this is a team that's still got a lot of talent and a lot of potential to potentially make a run at the college football playoffs here in 2025. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we do go through a roster overview. Offense over here to the left, and the defense is over here to the right. At the end of the video, we are going to go through the UTSA football schedule, where I will give the team a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is going to tell all of you what I think about the Roadrunners here in 2025. Before we do get started, right down below me are some returning production numbers. Just shows you, again, some of the talent that is here on this team, at least the talent that was on it last year and what's coming back. Those numbers are according to 24/7, or not 24/7 Sports. Those numbers are according to ESPN, and they factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. The numbers below that are according to 24/7 Sports. They're your recruiting rankings for the class of 2025, again, for both recruiting and the transfer portal class. What is noteworthy, 82% returning production offensively. That is one of the top marks in offensive returning production in the entire country for your offensive coordinator, Justin Burke, and the UTSA offense. Let's kick it off with what some may argue the most important position, the quarterback position. And Owen McCowan is going to be set to run it back here at the quarterback position. 3,224 yards to pair with 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That is what Owen McCowan did as a UTSA Roadrunner last season. Was also the team's third leading rusher with 340 yards and 3 touchdowns from a season ago. So overall, honestly, he did play pretty darn well, but you get the sense that he can play even better. And I think he's in a great system with Justin Burke and Jeff Traylor. He has the last name behind him. Obviously, McCowan was a big NFL name, and his family has a ton of football experience. Owen is a guy that I do believe in. Obviously, he showed a lot last season. Almost 3,500 passing yards is nothing to just graze past on the stat sheet. That's a number that, to me, makes you go like, hang on a second. This kid is doing something. And Owen McCowan is doing something. I do believe that you improve that touchdown to interception ratio, and that's just going to come with another year of experience and another year of enveloping yourself in this system. I think he's in the right system, and it's a good system. I think he's going to even see some improvement here as a quarterback in 2025. As far as the talent around him, let's take a look at the running back position. You do return your leading rusher from last year in Robert Henry. He had 706 yards and 7 touchdowns while averaging 5.4 yards per carry a season ago. And while the depth around him is going to look a little bit different, most notably you lose Brandon High, who had your season high in had your team high in touchdowns last year. Brandon Hyde did have 8 touchdowns on 495 yards, and again, averaged right around that 5.3, 5.4 yards per carry mark. He's a transfer now going over to play for the California Golden Bears. So obviously no longer here with this team. So there are going to be some other names that are going to step up into some bigger roles. You also are, by the way, going to see Kavorian Barnes transfer out to TCU. So again, the depth going to look a little bit different. You do have some transfers coming in. Amarian Peterson is over from USC. John Emery is in from LSU. And some guys that were back in the depths of the room that are going to be making a bigger impact this season and should see a bigger role. And while the depth is looking different, it says it right down here. Talent is not a concern for me. I think Robert Henry, probably that favorite to still lead this tailback room this season. But with those transfers you got, with some of the younger pieces that are coming up in this room, I still really like what you have as far as the backfield goes here with this Roadrunner program. But the Roadrunners do lose some good depth out of the wide receiver room. However, much like the running back room, a lot of your main pieces are still here, led by Willie McCoy, who had 536 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. Also did lead the team in yards per reception with 19.1. Even some other names that'll be returning here include Devin McEwen. You do return David Amador, hopefully I'm saying that last name correctly. DJ Allen comes back. You do get some transfers coming in. AJ Wilson, Jalen Smith, but DeCorian Clark is a massive name that is going to be returning here for this team. And to some people, he could have been a forgotten piece because he did not play much last year and did not play at all in 2023. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 2022 and 2021 to find out what the value for him is to this team. And that number is pretty freaking high, y'all. 2021, 755 yards and 7 touchdowns. 2022, 741 yards and 8 touchdowns. And you couple those 2 years together, I mean, that's some fabulous amounts of production, right, over 100 catches, right around 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns over his 2 most prolific seasons with this program. He is your most talented wide receiver when fully healthy and ready to go. And if he is fully healthy and ready to go, you pair him with all of the depth that I've mentioned around him, you got yourself a pretty darn good wide receiver room, and your tight end room is going to even be that for you as well, because this is an offense in the passing realm that gets a lot of production out of their tight ends. Well, you are going to get your lead one in Houston Thomas back. He was the team's 3rd leading receiver last year with 470 yards and 3 touchdowns, but you also get the other 2 guys that sat behind him coming back into the room as well. Patrick Overmeyer and Dan Dishman. Those are both guys that are going to be coming back to the tight end room, and they were your 2nd and 3rd leading receivers as far as tight ends go on this team last season. So if DeCorian Clark comes back healthy, ready to go, even if he isn't, I feel really good about where this pass catching room is at. If DeCorian Clark comes back and is healthy, I think that takes this wide receiver room and tight end unit, pass catching room as a whole, into an entirely new level. Now, a weak spot on this team was the offensive line. And while it didn't really affect their run game too much, their run game did have 4.5 yards per carry with almost 2,200 yards of production. That wasn't the problem. They allowed 30 sacks last season, and in order for, I think, Owen McCowan to take that next step forward, the offensive line has to do a much better job in pass protection. You have to be able to give him more time to sit in that pocket. You have to be able to give him more time to not make such hasty throws with the football, because while some of them were his fault, yes, those 10 interceptions last year, it can be helped by improving this pass block from a season ago. New pieces are going to fill in for the departures. Experience is still going to shine. This unit definitely can grow quite a bit from where it was last season. So overall, talent offensively, I really don't have that big of a gripe about. And I don't much so have a gripe about the talent defensively under defensive coordinator and Jess Lope. Hopefully I did say that last name correctly. Knowing my luck, I probably didn't. But there is a lot of talent that is going to have to replace. And the secondary from last season needs a massive upgrade. Let's dive into some of the pieces that are going to be here on this team. Your probably most prolific and most noteworthy defensive player from a season ago was an edge rusher player in Jamori Robinson. 43 tackles, 10.5 sacks, which by far and away was the most on this Roadrunner defense last year. That got to the quarterback 42 times. You lose a fourth of that production. when Robinson does leave. Also stuck his mid up for 2 pass defended, had 2 forced fumbles, and recovered 1 last season. So you're losing a very, very important player, and Robinson has now decided to go over and call West Virginia home. You're also going to lose Ronald Triplett, who is also going over to Georgia Tech, really big vital part to what this team did on, I should say, out of the edge rushing ability last season as well. He had 4 sacks a season ago. So John Jones is going to be a name that is coming back. He's going to return to the outside. Most notably, though, a lot of transfers are going to fit in on the interior of this defensive front. Guys coming over from the portal like Cameron Blaylock and Kion Roberts-Day and other pieces of that nature. And you do have some returners that will make up the 2 deep. Overall, it is a younger-ish defensive line room, at least compared to what you had last year. And I don't necessarily doubt the talent, but there are a lot of big shoes that have to be filled. Linebacking unit, well, that core also got completely gutted. For the most part, got completely gutted. Martavius French, leading tackler last year, had 80 tackles, did get a sack, 3 passes defended, really, really good linebacker. He's going to be gone, as well as a ton of other depth that sat in this linebacking room a season ago. You do get Vic Shaw coming back, as well as Owen Peewee, who is kind of that combination defensive back linebacker. He plays the money position. And then again, just some more transfers are going to fit in there. Brandon Tucker is going to be playing the jack position for you. Shad Banks is going to be transferring in here from TCU. He had 62 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss all the way back in 2023. So he's proven that he has the talent and he can play at a very, very high level. So again, you do have some more pieces that are going to be transferring in to help fill the gaps. Again, I said the secondary needs a massive reboot, and well, it's going to get it, but not in the best way. Your top defensive back performers from a season ago are going to be out and gone. There really is not a whole lot of major returning production to this defensive backfield. However, you do return one very important name in the safety room. That name, I lost it for a second. Let me get it back. That name is going to be Jamarius Lewis. You are going to get him back, as well as a couple other pieces that are just going to be taking a step up in terms of their role on the team this season. Again, your secondary did lose a lot. Most notably, you're going to be losing a guy by the name of Zaw Frazier, who was a stud at the cornerback position for you. 24 tackles, but did his damage in the defensive backfield. 9 passes defended, had a team high 6 interceptions a season ago. And again, you're just losing a lot of other pieces in production throughout this secondary unit. This was a team that did force 21 turnovers last year. Again, Jamarius Lewis is going to be a big return. Others will slot into some bigger spots, and I would be forgoed if I didn't mention a transfer in Caden Meyer, who comes over from Nevada. He had 27 tackles, 3 passes defended, did also have an interception back in 2023, so he has seen some good production over there with the Wolfpack. Special teams report, Michael Petro takes over as your kicker, while Cale Hogan returns to be your punter. That's your special teams report, and now when you dive on in to talking about this team as a whole, again, I already said it, I'll say it again, I'm not worried offensively about this team. I think Owen McCowan is in a great system. I think he takes another step forward this season. I like what he's about. I like him a lot. Backfield, I'm not worried about. Pass catching room, I think you got some really good pieces, especially if DeCorian Clark is healthy. And I trust that this offensive line is going to take a big step forward this year. Even if it's a small step forward, something's going to need to change on the offensive line. And that's probably the biggest question that I do have about this team up to this point. And then when you look defensively, there are a ton of holes that are going to need to be filled. I mean, a ton of them. Again, Jamori Robinson is a big loss. You lose your leading tackler. Some studs, including Zaw Frazier, out of the defensive backfield. So are the transfers going to fit in well? I think they will. And what of this talent that steps up and plays bigger roles? Defensively, especially in that back 7, those are the big questions for the Roadrunners for me this season. Still, however, should prove to be one of the better teams in the Group of 5 realm as you take a look at their schedule, which is sitting right on over here. But before we dive on into their schedule on the left, you'll look below me at some odds and numbers courtesy of FanDuel. They are current as of recording this video. As always, are subject to change, and it just provides some nice and good context onto what the odds makers think UTSA is going to look like this upcoming season. Plus 420 is the second highest odds to win the American Conference. Again, newly rebranded American Conference. They are only behind that of the Tulane Green Wave, who have been the top team in the conference for the past couple of seasons now, even though Army won the conference championship a season ago. Plus 1,600 odds to look and get into the college football playoff. Again, we look at their odds to get into the college football playoff in the G5, not their odds to go in the national championship, because we know it's going to take a lot. Plus 1,600 is one of the better numbers you're going to find throughout the G5 ranks, and it shows you that UTSA, when they put everything together, I would agree with it. They got all the talent necessary to start and make a run at the college football playoff. But you do kick off with two very, very vital games. In-state teams, one Power 5, or I said one Power 4, one Group of 5, and you kick it off with the Power 4 side in a road game against the Texas A&M Aggies that I do think you end up losing here. I think Texas A&M is, even though their record might not say it, I do think they overall are going to take a step forward this season. Marcel Reed, they finally think they've got their guy at quarterback. Le'Veon Moss coming back from injury in the running back room. I like him a lot, and I think he'll be a very hard piece to defend for a UTSA front seven that's trying to find in and trying to fit in some roles and find some places where they can fill in the gaps for their major defensive producers last season, as well as this Aggie defense. I think going to be a pretty solid one as well. I like Mike Elko. I like Texas A&M. I think they are better than UTSA, and going on the road to play in Kyle Field, never an easy thing. And I would also watch out for this one here against Texas State. Texas State's probably going to be one of the better teams in the Group of 5 realm. They at very least are going to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt Conference, and they definitely can give this team a run. You have Giovanni McCoy transferring in at quarterback, who was not so great at Oregon State last year, but balled out at Idaho a few years ago. Even though you lose Ismail Mahdi, Lincoln Pear, I think, is a really good running back, and he's got a lot of solid talent that sits behind him in that backfield, like what they did in the transfer portal in the wide receiver room. And defensively, you honestly get a good mix of guys that, while yes, do leave, you get some talent that does come back, had a lot of nice production for you last season. Overall, I think this one is up in the air. I really could see this as a 50-50 game, and I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining Group of 5 versus Group of 5 matchups we're going to see this year. Pair that up there with Toledo, Western Kentucky, and some of the more obvious ones that I probably am forgetting off the top of my head. This one, I think, is going to be spectacular. American versus Sun Belt, usually always some fun matchups. I think UTSA squeaks this one out. I think their offense at home in the Alamo Dome going to be a little bit too much for this Texas State team as well as far as defensively goes. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them to handle. And again, you have some concerns about the way Giovanni McCoy played at the FBS level last year. Can he get back to his Idaho form? That's a big question. Again, I think Texas State going to be a really good, solid team throughout most of this season, but I do believe that they will lose this one. UTSA comes out victorious in what should be a thrilling, entertaining matchup. Next couple games, I think you're going to win. I do think you should be Incarnate Word. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem there at home as an FCS level program. And then this one here against Colorado State. Now, I would really watch out for this Colorado State passing attack, because even though there is no more Torrey Horton, they still have Braden Fowler Nicolosi and probably will be a top half team in the Mountain West Conference this season. Still like a lot of the good wide receiver pieces they do have, and Kojo Antwi is a transfer they got coming over from Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State doesn't recruit just anybody at the wide receiver position, and I think their passing attack can give UTSA some troubles this year, especially if that secondary cannot take a step up from where it has in the past couple of seasons, especially last year, in terms of being able to defend the pass. So I would watch out for that. Overall, I do think that UTSA is much more talented than Colorado State, and I think even going on the road, they're going to be able to pick up that win, but that's a game I definitely would watch out for. I think Braden Fowler Nicolosi and that wide receiver room can definitely make things interesting for this UTSA secondary. As far as your first couple games of the American Conference goes, I almost said American Athletic. It's not that anymore. It's simply just the American. On the road at Temple and at home against Rice. You're probably looking at two teams that are really going to struggle in the conference this season. On the road against Temple, I just don't think they're going to be that great this season, losing a lot of talent, and I think they got some program things they need to figure out before they can start taking that leap. However, they did get Casey Keeler, so I think they could take a nice step in the right direction this year as far as building a program. You look at what Keeler did over at Sam Houston State. He can start to build that here at Temple, but I think it's going to take a year or two for him to really get his guys and get his system organized there with the Owls. And speaking of the Owls, I do think you're going to beat Rice there as well. This is a Rice team that, again, is just losing a lot of vital pieces. No more EJ Warner. There is no more Dean Connors. You're going to be losing both of those guys. That's quarterback and running back, respectively. I think Rice has still got some solid pieces, and they usually develop a couple of really nice players that can give teams fits, but overall, I don't think they're going to be a team to match up to UTSA. And we will move on to the second half of the schedule, which, look, I know you got those two non-conference games right there against teams in the state of Texas to kick off your season. This schedule to me is pretty backloaded, and it starts out with what I think is simply just an upset loss on the road at North Texas. North Texas has given this program fits ever since they joined the American. You remember the almost undefeated season that UTSA had? Well, it ended with a loss to North Texas. And as per usual, I think the Mean Green are going to be a pretty scrappy bunch this season. They went 6-6 last year, and even though this is not a team that overall usually is super dynamic, and they are losing Chandler Morris, who's a really dynamic thrower at the quarterback position, I think Reese Poffenbarger is going to be adequate at the quarterback position, at least adequate enough. He could even be pretty good. I do like a lot of their wide receiver pieces they have. While young, I think they're really talented. And defensively, you bring in a ton of transfers, especially in that secondary, that while I don't think can match UTSA if you play them 10 times, I think they can match them for a game. And going on the road to play in-state against this North Texas team usually is never easy. And hey, this is the G5. Sometimes unexpected things can happen. I think an unexpected thing happens here. I think North Texas pulls off quite the win. I think they get the upset. Again, they're pretty scrappy, and I really do like Eric Morris as a head coach. I think they pull off the upset and they get the win against UTSA. But then the Roadrunners have a chance. They get their second bye week. They get to relax and prepare for the Tulane Green Wave. Now, a question I may very well get, or some comments I may very well get on that Green Wave video, Jake Retzlaff is there now. Obviously, it's going to be really intriguing to see what happens because you have Caden Samanza there, who also very well could be the day one starter. I know Jake Retzlaff is going to be that overwhelming favorite, but the reality is he's entering the program with pretty much about a month to go before the season starts, and he hasn't even officially committed and signed. He's just verbally committed to go on to play Tulane. He is going to walk on to the program. So we'll see what ends up happening with Jake Retzlaff and how much he gets to play this year. I don't think it changes much about my evaluation about this Green Wave team. They're going to be really, really good offensively with Samanza or Retzlaff or whoever, even with the retool of the wide receiver room and of the running back room now that Mekhi Hughes is gone. I do really like this defense as a whole here as well, and it's what drives this Tulane team. But overall, you did lose a lot of very vital pieces last year, and it's a UTSA team that I think its offense can go toe-to-toe with any good defense here. Playing at home in the Alamo Dome on a weekday game with an extra week of rest, I think UTSA gets this one done. I think their offense, again, much like it could be for a lot of teams this year, going to be something special to handle. And I think it's really going to challenge this Tulane secondary, which if you want to mark a weak point of the Green Wave defense, it is that secondary. But the week after that, I do think you have a little bit of a letdown, albeit against the team that is still very, very talented in South Florida. I've been saying it over the past couple of seasons. I think that Byron Brown is one of the better quarterbacks we have in the G5 ranks. He is at South Florida. I think he's got some really good pieces around him and some really good weapons coming in through the transfer portal, especially that'll sit behind him, and a defense that is loaded with graduate students and some really, really dynamic pass rushers now in the middle of that offensive line to pair with some of the edge rushers that they have over there in South Florida. I think they're going to make life really difficult on this UTSA offensive front, and I think their offense is good enough to be able to rally around and overcome this Roadrunner team. So I think South Florida gets that one done, but the rest of the way, I think you avoid a loss. However, there are some intriguing games. You're going to win on the road at Charlotte. I don't think that's too much of a contentious point. However, you look at these two games against East Carolina and Army. Hey, man, if there's a team out of the American that you want to take a look at and say, okay, I think they're going to surprise this year, I think East Carolina would have to be my pick. Caton Hauser is coming back, some really good skill position players, really good defensive pieces that made this team good a season ago. East Carolina can step up and surprise this year, but I do think UTSA, again, a little bit too much for that defense. And then Army just lost a ton last year, man. No more Bryson Daly, no no more Kanye Udo, no more really, really good defensive pieces. There's obviously the big linebacker that's gone. His name escaping my mind at the moment. And you get this one at home. I don't think Army's going to be as dynamic offensively as they were last season, and the UTSA rush defense was pretty solid a year ago. I don't know if that much will change this season. I think they'll be able to slow down Army, and they get that win, leading to a record of 9-3, which is much more like the UTSA that we're used to seeing under Jeff Traylor. I think they have a great shot to go play for an American Conference Championship game, and if things go right, they can beat North Texas. They can beat South Florida. You're looking at 11-1 with an only loss your first week of the season on the road against SEC competition. Folks, that's a great case to get into the college football playoff. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.